How much of Iran's nuclear program is left? What was taken out? What does the future look like of trying to contain Iranian nuclear ambitions? Andrea Stricker is with us. She is a deputy director and research fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies Non-Proliferation and Bio-Defense Program. Andrea, thank you so much for being here. What do you think? I know it's preliminary, but it's getting a lot of attention because of the leak of a preliminary report to different news sites indicating that the strikes maybe weren't as successful as the Trump administration is saying. What's your take on it so far?
Thank you for having me, Buck. I think the battle damage assessment, we're all hearing that word often lately, is still out. And I think that what we've seen here is the media and select people cherry picking intelligence findings that didn't really show the whole picture of the damage that's been done. From my assessment, Iran's nuclear weapons option is likely set back around 2 years. And so it's probably more what the Israelis estimate that they have prevented them from really being able to assemble an atomic weapon due to the damage that they've done to their weaponization facilities prior to the U.S. strikes even.
So there's some debate now, some back and forth as to a few things. One is that there might have been material moved from the sites in advance of the strikes. This is where we get into how important would that stuff be? How possible is that? What's your take on whether they could have exfiltrated critical machinery in ways that would make it a more survivable nuclear program?
So it is possible that the Iranians moved some 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, and that would be enough for around 9 to 10 nuclear weapons. You could actually use the 60% material, that's what HEU is, and in a crude nuclear device without further enrichment. So it is a concern, but the Iranians were keeping a lot of this material in tunnels at Esfahan, the Esfahan complex that the US bombed, and then also likely keeping some in the underground Fordow facility. So my read is that this material may be entombed for now and would require extensive excavation efforts by the Iranians, which we could prevent through additional surgical strikes.
When you say excavating this, how survivable, I'm just trying to think of this through my mind, with a 30,000 pound bomb, going into the ground here, penetrating, going in, exploding, and how survivable would the materials be that we're talking about, even if they were able to dig some of it up? Would it likely a lot of it be destroyed, or would they have some kind of protections in place for them even underground that maybe they, again, I know we're trying to go into the nuclear bunker here, but I'm wondering what that part of it looks like.
The highly enriched uranium would likely be kept in large steel canisters. They could be easily moved, and they are somewhat fortified. Now, there is a potential that they were crushed, and so, in fact, that this could be their final resting place, and there is no concern about loose nuclear material. And it's worth pointing out that Prime Minister Netanyahu had mentioned a day or two ago that he has good intelligence on the whereabouts of the HEU. And so if he's able to act, I think, with intelligence information and all of his significant assets on the ground in Iran, I think he has a good chance of destroying that material if he needs to.
And so when you see what what the information's come out so far on this, does it indicate to you that when the Trump administration says that these were highly successful strikes, what would that mean in terms of how far back the Iranian program would be set? Does this take them? I assume the knowledge at some level, although the Israelis rather took out scientists in some of the early strikes, but I assume that there's a knowledge component of this, and that's much harder, obviously, to erase, right? But in terms of the actual physical infrastructure of the nuclear program, if it was as successful as Trump and Secretary Hegseth have indicated, what kind of reset would that create in their ability to get to a nuclear weapon?
I think we're looking at months to years in order to go to a nuclear weapon, because the Israelis had done a lot of damage to facilities that they would use to construct a nuclear weapon. A lot of the locations of their old atomic weapons assets from the early 2000s were hit, including the knowledge base. So the headquarters in Tehran called SPND of the nuclear weapons program, as well as the documentation that the Iranians had created as a backup of their early 2000 nuclear weapons program. And so I think even if they were able to have that HEU on hand, or even go to weapons grade at a secret enrichment facility, they could have a hard time actually constructing the bomb due to their loss of all those assets as well as the knowledge.
And so, what do you think the best moves for the Trump administration with regard to the program? I mean, I assume at some level now there'll just be a lot of intelligence sharing. Well, we'd hope there'd be a lot of intelligence sharing between the Israelis and the Americans about the status of the program. Do you think that it's likely that we can really get a sense as to how much damage has been done, or are we going to be essentially guessing at some level because the program was dispersed enough and dug in enough that are we ever going to really know how successful it was? Is I guess the basic question. Even within a few months of trying to use the satellites and the SIGINT and everything else that we have to figure out what's going on.
I think overall we will have a good assessment of the damage, and they use a variety of intelligence tools, as you know, to signals intelligence, human intelligence, to really penetrate and figure out what the Iranians believe is going on. Now, it may take months because Iran itself is going to have to find a way to get down to the Fordow enrichment site in particular to see what the damage is. And thus far, Israel is not letting that happen. We saw them even take out possibly a recovery team that was going to the site and block the entrances to the facility as well. I think all told, we're looking at a few months, if perhaps a shorter time of weeks, to be able to get a better sense of how far set back the program is.
Our sponsor here is the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. Israel is still under attack, and as we know, they've had to take action themselves against this nuclear program. There's a hard reality in Israel that they have to be aware of the enemies that are on their perimeter and that still fire missiles into Israel with regularity. This is why so many of us have partnered with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews to help provide life-saving aid and security essentials. Your urgently needed gift today will help provide security essentials like bomb shelters, flak jackets, and bulletproof vests for first responders, armored security vehicles, ambulances, and more. Join me in standing with Israel. Call to make your gift at 888-488-IFCJ. That's 888-488-4325, or online at supportifcj.org to give. That's one word, supportifcj.org. So it looks like this was a successful strike overall based on the preponderance of the evidence. The Iranian nuclear program, what do you think their response is likely to be given what's just happened here? Are they going to try to just restart this in other parts of the country? Are they likely to go to negotiations? How do you see this playing out? Clearly, the Iranians have paid a price for their nuclear ambitions.
I think either we will see the Iranians negotiate in order to maintain a ceasefire and not get into more trouble with the Trump administration or Israel. And if they don't negotiate, then they may dig in their heels. They may actually withdraw from the Nuclear Nonproliferation Treaty, which would, for all intents and purposes, mean that the UN nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, does not go back into Iran and does not verify the whereabouts of the missing nuclear material, or oversee any kind of a dismantlement effort to ensure that all the bomb components and capabilities are verifiably removed. And I think if I were the Trump administration and the president, I would read the Iranians the Riot Act here and tell them, this is exactly what you're going to do. You're not going to withdraw from the NPT. You're going to let the IAEA back in, and you're going to fully give up your nuclear program, or you're going to risk additional military action.
Andrea Stricker from the Foundation of Defense of Democracies Non-Proliferation and Biodefense Program. Andrea, thank you so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you're looking to donate to a worthy cause, look no further than Preborn. You'd be amazed at what $28 can do when you give it to support their mission of bringing tiny babies into this world. When you make a donation to Preborn, you're helping pregnant moms who are in a crisis moment making a decision about whether to give their baby life or choose abortion. Preborn introduces that mom to the tiny life that is growing inside her with an ultrasound. That ultrasound costs us $28. But with that ultrasound experience, given free to these moms, and then all the additional support that they're given if they take that baby to term and give birth, it's amazing what Preborn is able to accomplish. When you make a donation to Preborn, your gift provides for that critical ultrasound. $28 is the cost. And if you can, please consider making that a monthly recurring donation. It's 100% tax deductible. To donate securely, just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby, or visit preborn.com/buck. That's preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn.